I'm Shona Cruz, Marketing and Communication Director at Sistema.bio, and it's a pleasure to be with you today as we take you inside the system. To help unpack these conversations, I'm honored today to welcome an extraordinary group of leaders from across the Sistema.bio ecosystem. Hi, Aurelie, our Global People Director. She's shaping the culture and the talent strategies that connect our team across continents. Suman Sharma, Vice President of Marketing and Communication from Asia region, leading how we engage farmers and partners in one of the world's most dynamic agricultural markets. Esther Altorfer, Chief Strategy Officer, guiding Sistema.bio long-term vision and intersection of climate finance, innovation, and global growth. Almendra Ortiz Tirado, Managing Director for Latin America and the Caribbean region, driving impact across diverse farming communities through the region, and Florence Nyange, Finance Director for Africa, ensuring financial resilience and sustainable expansion across a rapidly evolving market. Each of them bring a unique regional and leadership perspective, but together we represent something larger, how inclusive leadership can strengthen organizations, empower farming families, and accelerate climate solutions worldwide. So let's begin. Thank you all for joining. We are going to host this panel. And to begin with, I would like to ask Almendra and Florence, who are currently managing both regions, Latin America and Africa. You know that historically, agricultural and AgTech companies has been led by men, are male predominated. So especially in leadership, but also in executive positions. So from your roles, what would you say has changed? What has been the biggest change in the last decade in how women's leadership are shaping how the industry is moving in these companies? Almendra, would you like to start?
Yeah, sure. Good morning, evening. Well, we are recording this is too early, so sorry if I miss my English words here, but hola, buenos dias. So, of course, historically, agriculture and agtech have been dominated by deeply male roles, from land to ownership, from technical roles, from executive leadership, and also boardrooms, which it's something that no many people talk about. But for decades, central decisions have been away of women roles, and notice this is not the same thing for the whole food systems roles, because women have been leading many things on the rural agricultural and food systems economies. And of course, over the last decades, I have seen meaningful change, but incomplete. Women are no longer participating in sustainability or ESG roles, community roles. In fact, as a personal anecdote, in many meetings, I had to clarify that I was not the sustainability director, that I was the managing director. That also in these type of sectors, it's not easy to find. And of course, increasingly, they're leading. We are as women leading operational, managing P&Ls, overseeing busy portfolios. And this group, for example, is an amazing example of the type of leadership and group core power groups in companies like us, which I'm pretty proud to be part of. And that shift matters because real influence sits where the capital and the risk decision making are based. Um, Recently, I heard about super interesting role in a super big CPG company, female role nominated as the CFO, which is one of the it's not common, no, to hear a CFO. But I don't want to only mention that case. For example, in Mexico and in Latam, we have a woman CEO. The CEO of Danone is a woman, the former CEO of PepsiCo, and also in Colombia, the CEO of Juan Valdez, which is one of the major coffee companies, is a woman. So, of course, I have seen change on that. But if I can mention a couple of other broader data, and sorry if I am going to read this because this is important. Only in Latin America, women hold only about 8 to 10% of board seats across Latin America, and in Mexico, the figure is roughly about 13%. And some people said that in this space, we are going to have balanced economy until 2043. And for example, the International Labor Organization indicates that only 4% of CEO positions in Latin America are held by women. Uh, and this is general-wise some numbers that I wanted to share. That of course I believe there is change, but representation it's not transformation. And if we don't change a couple of other things, this leadership remains symbolic, and we need to move forward from the inclusion to influence. And I could mention a couple of names that are pretty well known as other places like music or actresses like Shakira, Karol G, Salma Hayek, and other general activists, indigenous activists, which one of the major names is Rigoberta Menchú, but we need to move forward on corporate and leadership roles that are better known than these other names. No?
Thank you, Almendra. Yeah, very, very insightful. Florence, what would you say? It's an area of growth still happening in the sector, especially when we look at Africa countries.
Yeah, exactly. So in Africa, what I would say has been driving the women leadership at large. I think it's also reforms, especially on the public sector, on the governance side, also prompting the pressure and yeah, the urge in terms of other women exploring some leadership opportunities even in the private sector. I guess based on some few countries' constitutions where there are some changes in terms of their constitution as matters to do with governance and women representation in those specific countries, which I think has been reformed towards the right direction in terms of increasing the women leadership representation in the public sector, and now focusing more on the private sector. Women used to form the largest part of the workforce in the farms, that is in the agriculture and agri-tech sector, but merely to provide the labor workforce. But the transitions we've seen recently, it's women now leading and driving innovations beyond just providing labor for subsistence farming and all that. Then I guess the other observation we've seen more, it's driven from the fact that urbanization is quite a lot in so many major cities. And now women who are previously providing the mere labor at the farm, seeing an opportunity in terms of having some startups that can provide food to the urban population and all that. So yes, those are the major changes we've seen in the past. But also beyond that, there's quite a number of growth in terms of the network in forums where women get to learn from each other, and also coaching the young children in terms of seeing these opportunities and starting up such small farms that can scale up at large in terms of supporting the agri-tech and the agriculture sector.
Yeah. I think among both regions, and I could say in other regions in the world, we can see similar like progress, but also still some areas to work where, as Almendra mentioned, like it's not enough to have representation, but real voices that shape how the industry and other industries are moving. So, having this in mind, and thank you, Florence, for giving us this lens about Africa, and moving a little bit of how the decision making is taken. So, I would like to ask Esther, who is our Chief Strategy Officer, what could you? How does a women leadership lens strengthen long-term resilience in this rapidly changing context in climate change, where like markets are has great volatility, like where um, the industry is moving so fast, and the laws are changing as well, not only in climate, but nowadays we can see like the world is changing in terms of diplomatic sense. So what could you say the leadership lens with women change and frame this context?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me here. It's great to be with all of these amazing women on a virtual panel. Yeah, I had to think really hard about the answer here because I wouldn't. I personally struggle with consciously putting a gender lens on what I do. I think it's tied to the fact that I really had the immense privilege of being raised by my mother mostly and by also very strong grandmother. So I've always seen strong and empowered women around me. And it's only much later as I grew up and as I started working and traveling that I realized the gender gap and understood it and experienced it. So I struggle to tell you this is because of gender, I do this or that. I don't think I at least consciously do that. But back to a little bit of strategy and long term resilience. What I do, but along with the entire leadership team at Sistema.bio, is especially in terms of uncertainty, I really bringing the team back to our North Star, to where do we want to go, which in this case is our 2030 goal. So we have a direction, and when everything is changing around you, centering back around that North Star. We also, in times of change, agreed to adapt our North Star. So at Sistema.bio, our 2030 goal is now to reach 1 million farms and impact the lives of 6 million people. And this is why we wake up every day. This is the ambitious goal that we have. And this helps navigate uncertainty, is to know where you're going and what you're planning to do. And the second piece is really about us being a mission driven company, very, very focused on why are we here and what are we trying to change. And of course, a huge focus on the numbers, but really being very centered around our values that guide our decision making. So when we have to make hard decisions in the day to day, really thinking back about why are we here, what really matters, and particularly in the recent turbulence, I would say we've been particularly focused on the farmer-centric value and our ethical value. One has focused really on making sure we always remain with a top priority on our customers, that we focus on what do they need, what is important to them in this exact moment. And the second one is the ethical value that helps coming back to our core principle and our core values on how we speak with employees, how we communicate internally and then externally. So this is how we've tried to balance the uncertainties and the ever-changing environment, really being focused on the long-term direction, and staying true to our values.
Thanks, Esther. You touch a very important point about like the North Star, like the goal, but also like the values, like what is like that net that contains Sistema.bio operational activities, but also like where as a leaders we go back when we feel that this scenario is changing. And talking about values, I like to bring Aurelie to the conversation. um, Aurelie, you know that we are a globally distributed company across the 3 different continents, and we work like hand to hand with smallholder farmers. How do you see that woman-centered internal policy help us to build cohesion across regions while also strengthening our ability to adapt to these markets that are uncertain and evolving very rapidly, especially when talking about like the farmer reality that they face day to day?
Hello. Well, thank you for having me today in this panel. Well, first, before answering the question, I want to say that at Sistema.bio, policies are very important. It's not just document. So all our policies shape our culture, but also the daily experience of every employee. And women-centered policies are essential for us, of course, because of equity, but also because they help to create a cohesion across teams and across regions. Clear women-centered policies in recruitment, development, pay equity, parental leave, safety, create shared standards and align expectation. They send a strong message wherever you are in Sistema.bio, whatever your gender, fairness and inclusion are not negotiable. And that consistency, so same standards across teams and region, and transparency build trust. And trust, for us, it's very important, and it's what holds global organization together. That being said, it's really important also to take into consideration the cultural differences, because the reality in India is not the same in Mexico and in Kenya. And the cultural norms, the labor market, the gender dynamic are very different. So we do have to recognize those differences. Otherwise, we risk creating regional inequities that erode trust instead of reinforcing it. So it's very important. So in short, in a global organization like ours, where distance and cultural differences already create complexity, shared standards, thanks to clear policies, reduce ambiguity, and decisions feel less dependent on who your manager is, in which country you are in, or what is your gender. We really have clear standards. So for us, it's very important. But also another point, and we already touched that a little bit with Almandra, Nasser, and Florence, is that thanks to our policies, we have more than 42% of the senior management positions are held by women, which is higher than the percentage women of overall workforce. And 42% is higher than the benchmark that we have in the regions where we operate. So we are, of course, really proud of that because it matters. So it matters because leadership teams that include both men and women bring broader perspectives and experience. They reduce blind spots. They improve also risk assessment, and they make stronger strategic decisions. So Esther was talking about that, but it's really important to have like men and women in leadership teams. And it's what we do have in the global leadership team, but also in each region. And it's also important because with who we work, so the farmers, and in rural communities, women are central economic actors. They influence farming decision, investment, technology adaptation, even if women, unfortunately, still today are not always visible. So they influence decision. Unfortunately, most of the time, it will be the men of the family who will be in front line, make decision, but women, they are influencing this decision. So if women are not part of our strategic leadership, we risk misunderstanding also the farmers we work with. So it's really important. So in short, again, gender equality in leadership is important for fairness, but also for us, it's more than that. It's also about performance, about relevance, and about the growth of Sistema.bio.
Thank you, Aurelie. That's very clear, and I like the way you emphasize the fact that women in the community play a central role in the economic of the community, and they are decision makers, and they are the users of our technology, and also in the agricultural landscape. So if we do not understand and we don't have that representation in the decision making process, we have like a gap there. This is very linked to the question that we want to ask to Suman, because she has been leading the marketing and communication strategies for India, but other Asia countries. And I'd like to ask you, Suman, what is the approach and what have your learnings of these years of working with female farmers, and taking them not as a secondary audience, but like an important decision maker when it comes to see how do they want to cook, how do they want to spend their time during the day, and how do they envision their future, not only for them, but also for their children. So what can you tell us about your experience?
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me on this panel. And thank you, Shu, for asking this question because it highlights something we often tend to overlook. In climate, in AgTech, we talk about farmer as a single generic person. But in reality, farming is not an individual activity, it is a household effort. And when you look very closely, women are deeply involved in how farms are actually run. And I saw this when I joined at Sistema.bio too. On paper, our consumers most of the time are males because the biogas plant is registered in their name. But in daily life, biogas system becomes a part of women's routine. She's the one who is actually every day using it, managing it, and she's the one who actually decides whether it really works for her own household. And this is where my thinking quite shifted because the person who uses a solution every single day is definitely not just a user. She is a decision maker, and we need to acknowledge that. And once you see that, the way you communicate with them has to change. And with this, we started listening to the women more closely, understanding their requirements more closely, and we saw the questions they asked were very practical. Will this save time? Is it reliable? What happens if something goes wrong? Those questions come from responsibility, not just curiosity. And for me, this is all about empowerment. Because we started our communication approach in a way which is more simpler, more direct and honest. We focused on everyday value rather than just product features. We shared real stories, women sharing their experience, their stories with other women. And this sort of led us to build more trust. And when we talk about empowerment and we look at gender perspective, this reminds us that inclusion isn't charity, it is justice. And women do not need to be added to this system. They are already a part of it. They just need a recognition that they hold a very important role in the decision making. So I would like to close it by saying that I truly believe women speak, societies evolve. And when women are heard, systems truly transform. They are often the bridge between the silence and the change, whether in their house, their children. A small change at a rural level that women takes changes the entire ecosystem often. And when we start recognizing them as decision makers and not just secondary audience, solutions become more grounded and they are more likely to last for future. And that's the shift I have actually seen, and then the one I actually continue to believe in.
Thank you, Saman. I'm 100% agree, and I can say that this phenomenon that you are seeing, that we've been working in India, goes not only for that region, so it applies to the whole regions in Mexico, in Colombia, in Central America, Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, because the role that women play in the households, but also in agriculture, is exactly the same no matter the culture. No, so we are stewardship of the families. We are like the leading of how we are shaping new humans. uh, and when you see an empowered mother or women in the house, as Esther mentioned, as a children, as a small girl, you can see that everything is possible with that example. So I think, and I can and speak by myself, but I'm pretty sure all of you share this feeling. It's like knowing that we are adding a tool for our women's in their household to have a different way to manage their life. It's something that gives us like the inspiration to work in this male dominated industry, but we know that we are doing an extraordinary change in that. And we unfortunately we have limited time, and we can continue this conversation longer and longer and in a deeper way. But I would like to hear from each of you, like from your today perspective and roles, but not only as a leader, as a woman, but as a woman. What would you say to a small girl in one of our communities uh, about what she can expect for the future? Um, Coming from a small community in a rural countryside, but what would be the message that you would deliver to her for her future? So I'll ask Almendra. Can you tell us?
By the way, I was not ready for this question, so actually, I was on a small farm a couple of months ago, and I would tell what I already tell the little girls that were studying primary school, that they keep studying, that they fight for their dreams because they're possible.
Thank you, Almendra. Florence?
Yeah, thanks, Shu. Yeah, I think what I would say to the young girls starting off and looking forward to the future is there's still potential in terms of unlocking the market and also shaping the agriculture sector, but probably now seeing it not just from the angle that we used to see it from before, whereby it's just aligning what we are doing to the day-to-day needs in terms of a mother providing for their families, but also seeing the opportunity and also, yeah, maybe also exploring the resources that we have out there in terms of thinking through how to scale up the small idea into a big venture. But I feel like there is also need of external support in terms of unlocking that potential. But yeah, there is a lot of potential in the future that still remains untapped.
Thank you, Florence. Esther?
I think none of us were prepared for this. So, the first thing I thought was, yeah, I would tell a little girl that she can do it, that everything's possible, similar to what Almendra said, but also that when it is hard, that she doesn't stay in a situation that well, tries her best to surround herself with people who will encourage her, and that she should never settle for anything less than boys or other people. And to call me if she needs some pep talk.
Amazing. Early.
Yeah, same as Almendra and Esther, that first she should believe in her dreams, and that she may be the first one in her family, in her community to do something. The first generation, like a lot of us, for example, we are probably the first generation of women to have leadership position, to even in the sport, the women, they are now like really more, there is more and more women represented, like Almendra said before, like in the music, in a lot of industry. So I would say that she if she has example around her really good, she can follow these examples. And if not, that she can be the first one. And if she has a brother, that she can do exactly the same thing that him, hopefully. So I would say that there is a lot of hope.
Amazing. Thank you, Aurelie. Suman, what would you say?
I agree with the panel. So, I mean, times have changed. So, I would go up to that girl and say, things are not what it used to be for your parents, mothers, not so traditional, not barriers. So, think outside, push boundaries, and never doubt yourself. Just go for it.
Amazing. I love all these messages. It's so inspiring to see that we can
And
settle
Shu,
and
what would you say to the little kid?
yeah, I always think on my nieces when I spend time with them, and I always say like, you want it, you can do it. So something, and I'm pretty similar what Esther shared. It's like I grew in a family where like we were lots of women, and I saw my mom having an idea from very little to go to school, and she fought for that. So uh, in those days it was very difficult that men let women go to school, no, and that's something that has always pushed me, because if my mom was able to do that as a little girl, like everything can be done, no. So every time that I go to the field and see a family and see these little girls studying or coming from school and helping at home and understanding how the digester works, it's like these girls already know science because they live with them at home, so they can do whatever they want. So that's my main message to them, like, you want it, you can do it. So let's find a way, and ask. If you don't have the tool today, you can ask, and don't hesitate of raise your hand and say, I want to know more, and I don't understand, or where do I find the answer. So it's just matter to ask to find the answer. That would I say. Okay, so thank you so much, Aurelie, Almendra, Esther, Florence, Suman, for today's conversation. I really want to thank our audience for joining us. Um, we know that this amazing group of leaders is just a representation of what Sistema.bio does. And we are 6 women here, but we have thousands of women in our fields, with our partners also working. We have amazing stories. We have farmers that were user at some point, and some of them are working with us as sales agents, are technicians, and they know exactly what is how does it feel to have a digester at home, how this transformational change is shaping the future of their children's. So we are proud of it, and as we share our experiences in Sistema.bio, we know that other companies in the AgTech industry are also doing it. And I think as a group of women, we all know that doesn't matter what is the type of technology that we are bringing, but empowerment is fundamental when we bring all together to the same user. As Suman shared with us, they are not a secondary audience, they're like real people changing their lives and the future of their community. So thank you so much. We know that this is progress. This is not the final line. So there's still a lot of things to do. And we just want to raise our voice to bring this message to the world about like this group of women working inside a very important company now doing biogas and renewable energy, but also agriculture and changing how we are creating the food that will feed the world in the future. So thank you all for joining, and we'll see you in another thank you in another episode.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Gracias.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.